All right, so I want to draw your attention to something that can be of tremendous value if you're looking to scale your Facebook ads, or you really want to start your Facebook ads from the ground up, build them up and scale them to the next level. So this is a post that I shared back in 2022, as you can see over here. And this post basically breaks down the exact strategy that we were using to scale our client ad accounts. So of course, I'm going to share with you an updated version in this video, but essentially this strategy is something that we still use till this day to scale our client ad accounts. And you can follow this framework and you can go ahead and implement this framework into your business, and you can go ahead and test the strategy out and optimize it where necessary. So I've taken the liberty to add everything into the Google document over here so that it's easier to read. So yeah, just basically breaking down what we'll cover in this video. We'll cover testing audiences, creatives, and ad copy. We won't go too much into the technical side of things, but I promise this is going to be valuable. I'm going to share some ideas and suggestions that you can leverage, obviously with some actionable items. That said, we're also going to touch on the difference between ABO and CBO and how you can go ahead and test that out. And then we'll go through scaling phase one, and then we'll touch on scaling phase two. So the goal is that you can sort of copy the system to help you generate at least 100K per month from your Facebook ads, provided you have the resources to scale to that level. Right. And then I'm also going to share some ideas and suggestions that you can go ahead and implement, or rather some tips if you notice that your results tank after you increase your ad spend. So uh, initially, what we sort of go ahead and do is we launch one campaign, right? Depending on our budget. So let's say you have $100 per day for ad budget, or $1,000 per day, whatever the case may be. The goal is to find profitable audience in the shortest amount of time, and doing that in the most profitable way. So you can spend $10,000 testing and it can produce no results, or you can spend $2,000 of your 10,000 budget, find profitable audiences, and then that way scale. That is the correct way to go about doing this. Now, as I touch on in all of my other videos, this is something that I've not touched on back then, but everything is based off of your custom avatar. So essentially, you want to build out a custom avatar that is unique to your business, unique to your products, unique to your offer. So taking that information, that's something that you need to go ahead and do on the drawing board. Find your ideal customer, list everything they like, they dislike, their interests, their hobbies, all of that. And then from there, you can go ahead and implement what I'm about to share in this video. So the goal is to launch one campaign, right? But the way that we structured it back then was launching two campaigns, splitting our budget between two campaigns. The reason that we did this was because certain ad accounts, ABO, worked exceptionally well, and other ad accounts, CBO, performed exceptionally well. So the way I did that back then was launching one ABO campaign. And of course, we're not going to touch into the granular details of, that the audiences might compete against each other. I want you to, take that all out of your head, because that is not always the case. But you want to launch one ABO campaign, testing at least 10 audiences at minimum of a $3 to $5 per day budget, right? This again is based off of your ad spend that you are working with, or your budget that you can go ahead and allocate to testing new audiences. So you want to have one campaign running with ABO settings, and you want to have another campaign running with CBO settings, and this will equal the total budget of the ABO campaign, right? Your goal is, in the beginning, you want to at least have three different creatives and two ad copy angles. The way that we structure this now is we try to have five different creatives and at least four different ad copy angles. And if you want to learn more about the ad copy angles and the creative strategies that we use, you can go ahead and check out the other videos on the channel. But this is the goal, right? Of course, you have to have validated offer and you have to throw this into your campaigns. So the goal is to find profitable audiences that produce at least a 5 to 6x return. And this, of course, is based off of your cost per acquisition, your cost of goods, your profit margins, all of this. So you need to take all of that into account. Only you will know what is a profitable audience for you, right? For certain brands who have high profit margins, a two return on ad spend, a two ROAS will be exceptionally well, right? Because you're making a return off of that. The goal is to find profitable audiences within the first 2 weeks that you can go ahead and scale and triple down on your winners, right? So when testing campaigns, we prefer to, of course, use ABO. This has always worked well for us. It works well in most of our accounts. But as I mentioned, certain accounts, CBO works much better. So we test the ABO campaign against the CBO campaign. And the goal is not to run these campaigns for a month, 2 months, 3 months. The goal is to see in those initial days which campaign is performing better, right? And then the moment that you uh, see the discrepancy, you notice that, okay, ABO is performing better for my ad account, you shift all your budget to your ABO campaigns. The moment you notice that CBO is performing much better, you immediately shift all your budget towards your CBO campaigns, right? So touching on to scaling phase one, when you launch the first testing campaigns, it's completely normal that you see good returns. And that's because you're spending small budgets, right? To find these profitable audiences, which is the best way to go about because you don't want to be spending $100 per audience that you don't even know if it's you're not sure if it's going to produce results, right? So you're going to spend small testing budgets. But in this testing period, you will notice that you might see some decent results, and that's because you're spending small budgets. So you want to trade carefully, and you don't want to get too excited because you're seeing a 10x return on one audience, right? Because the fact of the matter is that once you start scaling that audience, results will tank. You might see a 2x return, or it might not be profitable at all. So another thing that will happen in the beginning that Facebook is going to show you ads to low-hanging fruit or customers who already know about your brand and who are likely to purchase. So you want to keep this in mind, but your goal is to weed out all of the imposter audiences and scaling the profitable audiences, and then that way finding audiences that will produce results at scale. So touching on the strategy, initially you want to let your campaigns run for at least 3 to 4 days, right? So I mentioned here that each audience should be at a $3 to $5 per day budget. Of course, this over year will depend on your cost per acquisition and your price point of your product, right? So obviously, if you have a $500 price point for your product, it doesn't make sense to only test $10, $15 to see whether an ad is going to perform well. You're obviously going to be spending much more. So you want to tailor this towards your brand. You want to maybe increase your budget or you want to run these ads longer, right? We use this strategy because this way we don't waste that much budget, if I can put it that way, on audiences that don't work, right? Because if you have a $5,000 per day budget, and you're just blowing $1,000 on one audience at a time, you're not going to be profitable with the results. You're going to be wasting a ton of budget on audiences that don't work. So this process, as I mentioned, has worked for us before, and it produces results, right? So at this point, you should have some data, right? You should have some add to carts. You should have some initiate checkouts on certain audiences. Once you've spent your half of your CPA, usually, you want to cut out any audiences that are not producing results. So if you have $100 product, right, and you spent around $50 to $70, and you notice that there's no audience, there's no purchases, there's no add to carts, there's no initiate checkouts, nothing on this audience, then you want to go ahead and turn those audiences off, right? Uh, Adversely, or rather, on the flip side, if you do have audiences that are producing results, they have purchases that have add to carts. You want to continue letting those audiences run, and you want to double the budget of your winning audiences. So let's say you have audiences at a 10 to $15 per day. Let's just use this over here for numbers sake, right? So at this point, you want to scale these audiences to around $20 to $30 per day, and you want to let these audiences run. Um, we usually give them at least 3 to 7 days, right, to run, to generate more purchases, to generate more add to carts, right? Remember, all of these audiences that have add to carts, that have initiate checkouts, you can go ahead and retarget those customers who have shown interest in your brand. So you can repeat this process over here until each audience over here. Back then, we were testing much smaller budgets, but now this strategy safely works up until around $100 per day for each audience, right? So you can go ahead and test this out. This is testing phase one, right? This is phase one where you're finding profitable audiences, you're finding profitable creatives, profitable ad copies. That's scaling phase one. So at this point, right, we're going to touch on scaling phase two, right? And by this point, you should at least have a minimum of 5 to 8 profitable audiences. Again, everything over here is based off of your ideal customer, and you can use the suggested tab to find similar audiences of your winning audiences. So if you don't have any profitable audiences, you just want to rinse and repeat the process until you have at least 5 to 10 profitable audiences over here, right? So at this point, these audiences will be tested. Uh, you have significant data. So you have some sort of idea of what audiences work on your account, what offers, what ad copies, what creatives resonate most with your audiences. So at this point, you can confidently throw these audiences into a new campaign, right? Or you can just keep them in the current campaign over here and just let them run and manually increase the budget. But usually what works best for us is throwing these campaigns into a throwing these audiences into a CBO campaign at this point. Because at this point, you have enough data on your account and it will be easy for you to manage everything at the campaign level. So you can scale this from $100 to $500 per day at the ad level, right? That's strategy one. Strategy two is duplicating the winning audiences and letting them spend the same daily budget. So at this point, you're still running this campaign, right? And let's say you have a vegan uh, audience that is performing well. You're spending $20, spending $30 on that audience. You can go ahead and duplicate that audience, which will show your ads to a new pocket within that audience, if that makes sense. And you can run it that way, or you can, for example, if you have certain audiences that are performing well, you can go ahead and duplicate them a couple of times into their own separate campaign. So as you can see over here, duplicate each audience 2 to 3 times in their own the CBO campaign. So if you have an audience that is generating 7 to a 10x return, and you want to throw those audiences into a CBO campaign, that is also something that we've tested out and it works well. So, what to do once your results tank, right? So, usually dropping the budget down. So, if you're at $100 per day, usually bring the budget back down to what it was previously before the results tanked. That is the most simplest way. That way you can give your ads time to learn before you go ahead and scale again. You can try to scale again in a couple of days. Another thing also to mention is that you want to make sure that your audiences are big enough. This is a challenge that we had with one of our clients in the past, where we had profitable audiences, but they were only around 200 to 500,000 people in audience size, if I can put it that way. So the problem that we had was, now that we're spending $2,000, $3,000 per day, our frequency on those ads became super, super high, and the results tanked. And then we sort of had to go back to the testing phase one. Of course, this is not a problem that we have nowadays, but this is something that we've tested out and something you need to keep in mind, learning from our expertise on the brands that we've scaled. So yeah, keeping your audiences as broad as possible works well for us. And then another thing is at scale, you want to make sure that your creative pipeline and your ad copy pipeline is full. You want to have a constant flow of new creatives that you can go in and test. If you're not testing, you're losing out on money. Same thing with your ad copies. You want to do the exact same thing. So that means always testing new audiences, always testing new creatives, always testing new ad copies, new angles, um, and then finding something that you can triple down on and consistently scale. So that's it. I hope that you found some value in this video. Um, if you have any questions, feel free to go ahead and drop them below. But that's it. Thanks so much and hope you have a lovely day.